Hey guys, Stay Patient here and welcome to the Trophy Hunters Hangout. This is the second episode, making it an official series now, which is cool. And it's a series that's very much inspired and driven by my Patreon community. So with that in mind, I'm going to say a quick thank you and welcome to all my new patrons this week. We have Van Tetmeyer, Rashid J, Ian Bravo, Lucas Kazmarek, Stan Konopka, Jonathan Glass, Solaire Sunlight Blade. I'm not sure if that's his real name, but if it is, it's awesome. And my second Patreon producer, Damien Thibodeau. Now, I apologise if I've butchered any of your surnames, but a big thank you and welcome to the Patreon community. It's nice to see it growing, and it's nice to see everyone so active on the Patreon page because, of course, the YouTube channel itself is growing to the point where I'm not really able to answer every comment or anything like that. I used to try to, and I did my best to respond to everybody. But, now I'm receiving hundreds of comments every day. So I do look through them all, I do read them, and I do try and answer any questions that I come across as long as YouTube remembers to notify me of the comment. But for the most part, I'm having to take a bit of a step back because it was becoming almost a full-time job, just answering comments. And obviously you guys want me to be spending my time putting up actual content. So that's what I'm trying to focus on. But of course, if you'd like to become part of the Patreon community and benefit from all the rewards, but also have more access to me and, be able to interact with me on a more regular basis. Obviously, with it being a smaller community, I'm able to respond to everybody on there. So yeah, go and check it out and see what you think. But obviously, like I say, this is the show where we answer questions and discuss topics that have been raised by the Patreons there. And last week, we were talking about the hardest platinums on the different consoles. So I received two questions. I'm going to read them out again because we're going to be actually sort of continuing this theme today. We had John Tancredi who said, I want to know what you think the hardest platinum for Vita, PS3 and PS4 are, one for each if possible. And James Cooper said, I'd quite like to hear what the toughest platinum you've ever earned was, or the one that took you the most hours. Now, of course, both these guys were asking for my personal opinion on the hardest platinums that I'd earned. But last week I thought what we'd do is split it into two parts, and last week we took a look at some of the useful resources on PlayStationTrophies.org that sort of collect together all of the difficulty ratings for different games, and you can look through at all the platinums in order of how difficult they are, and we took a look at some of the sort of regular occurrences, some of the recurring themes, games like Super Meat Boy and the NBA 2K games, the Ninja Gaiden games, the Street Fighter games. There were lots of games that sort of showed up on more than one console amongst the sort of 10 out of 10 difficulty platinums. But this week we're going to be actually sort of answering their questions in the way that they wanted me to, because we're going to be talking about my personal hardest plats. So to do that, we're going to be taking a look at both of my accounts. Of course, all of you guys know me as Stay Patient, but I did have an account before that, and a lot of you won't know what it was because I've never really spoken about it. So we're going to be taking a look at it for the first time, which is kind of exciting, I guess. And it's been a while since I've looked through it, actually. But the account was Tommy T456. I've got it open here. Now, of course, I started this account before trophies ever existed, so there's a lot of incomplete games on it. I wasn't as big a trophy hunter back then. It's very much a PS3 based account because I stopped playing on it back in 2012, and then I started the Stay Patient account in like early 2013, just before the PS4, so that's mostly PS4 games. But you may notice here there are some PS4 games showing up at the top of the list. The reason for that, and also the reason why the completion percentage is so low, is because I now use it as a boosting account. So if I'm doing trophies on Stay Patient and I need a second player, or I need to log someone in, a bit like with Skyscrapers, you need sort of 4 accounts logged in to be able to get the 4-player trophy. You can probably use guests, guest accounts, but any trophy like that, any game like that where you need multiplayer trophies, then I just sign Tommy T in as an extra player, and he ends up earning like maybe 1 or 2 trophies. I say I end up earning 1 or 2 trophies, but there's loads of games like that I just played for the sake of helping Stay Patient, But what we're going to do is, because it's quite a long list, we are going to go to the rarest trophies here. Now, there are more rare trophies, more rare platinums on this account than there are on Stay Patient, because I haven't had the same kind of time available to be able to really sink time into a really, really difficult platinum on the Stay Patient account. I have earned some tricky ones, from a few years ago. Nowadays, I spend most of my time, trying to play as many games as possible, so that I can talk about them with you guys and do top 10 videos of easiest plats and things like that. But if we have a look here at my rarest trophies and switch it over to platinum, you'll notice that there are some nice rare platinums on the account. There are obviously some key ones missing. I haven't done any of the insanely difficult ones apart from Gran Turismo, which we're actually going to talk about more so a little bit later. We're going to leave that one for now. But the rarest plat on my account is Homefront. Now you'll see here that it's very, very low completion rating. 0.5% of people, and bear in mind that this is, psnprofiles.com is a site populated primarily by trophy hunters. It's not a site that tracks everybody. So if you were to take into account everybody who had played Homefront, then it would almost be like on food packets that have the ingredients listed and it says trace because there's maybe a tiny bit of something in it but not even high enough to register. It would be probably that kind of percentage. It would just be 0.01 or something. But the reason this one was so difficult, as you can see here, it's given an 8 out of 10. I think the voting thread is actually higher than that. But it wasn't even really that it was that hard. It was just that it was so long-winded and the requirements, they were just unrealistic. There's this one trophy here called Expert of War. And this was the one, in fact, if we take a look at the game itself, put them in order of rarity, you'll notice here that it's basically the trophy that holds people back from the platinum. I mean, there's trophies even like this, entering a party with 16 players, that was a bit of a pain. But if we just hop back, let's take a look at this trophy here, right? Expert of War. Now, if you've been gaming since, if you've been a big trophy hunter since the earlier days of the PS3, then you'll probably remember this as being a notoriously difficult plat. It's massively long-winded. This trophy requires you to get basically 200 kills with everything in the game. Now, a lot of these things are basically deployable kind of vehicles and stuff like that, so you need to build up a certain amount of points. The point system in the game worked really well, and I actually really enjoyed the game, despite it being so difficult and such a grind. I had a lot of fun. And, I was really glad to earn the platinum. It's a real shame it's not on the Stay Patient account. But the point system, it worked differently to Call of Duty. It wasn't kill streaks. It was it didn't matter if you died. You would just build up points by everything you did in the game. And then you'd spend those points on, vehicles or, I can't remember exactly, I think, special weapons, these RPGs and stuff. And if you have a look here, we've got trophies for getting a 10 kill streak with all of these weapons. Then you've got trophies, some of them were these, where are they? The drones, some of them were a real pain. The Rhino, that was one of them. The Rhino, you needed 200 kills with that, but it only killed vehicles, if I remember correctly. It was a little tank drone that you drive around, and you'd deploy it when you had enough points, so you couldn't just deploy it any time. You'd wait until you had the points and you spend those points and buy it, but you'd only, you tried to only buy it if there was vehicles around that you could shoot down. And it was so difficult to destroy a vehicle, just one vehicle. Other games would have a trophy for, destroy a vehicle with the Rhino. And that would still be a bit of a pain. But destroy 200 vehicles. Or I think if there was multiple people in a Humvee or something, that would count as a few kills, But you can imagine, you'd go through game after game after game getting none. Because it was very difficult. Your Rhino would get shot down straight away. If people saw it, they'd just shoot it and it'd be gone. So, I mean, if there was some others here, what was the other one here, so you've got to get 200 kills with C4, you've got to get 200 knife kills, and with the different grenades and stuff, and there's all these different vehicles, you'd spend literally weeks working on just one of them, and you get that done, and then it would be right, one down, another however many dozen to go. The thing is, although you could technically boost, you needed 24 people to be able to do so, because the matches were big, sort of large maps, large scale battles like the Battlefield games, and you couldn't really, you technically, I suppose you could try and get into a game with a few friends and then go to a corner of the map, but needing 200 kills and everyone who's boosting with you needing all those kills, it just became mayhem. I remember I tried to boost twice and I did get some of it done, but it was a case of having two teams and being like, right, it's this team's turn to boost and we just go nuts on the other team getting whatever we could. But then again, you'd need to wait until you had enough points to be able to buy the deployable items. So man, it was insane. This platinum, I mean, it took me, I think it was about 9 months to complete. But like I said before, ironically enough, I really enjoyed it and I was almost disappointed when it ended. I think that was partly due to the fact that I had a good friend, in real life, obviously, that I used to play it with. I used to go around to his place. We'd set up the two TVs and do a kind of, not a LAN session, but, an online session together and play it for hours, and it was a huge amount of fun. I really enjoyed the game and I'm really disappointed that the new Homefront wasn't any good, because I think the online was really well designed. It was a bit clunky and a lot of people didn't like it because when they first tried it, it felt clunky. It wasn't as smooth as Call of Duty or Battlefield, but the actual structuring of the game, and once you got used to the controls and the mechanics, it was really, really good. It was a great online experience. So that's the rarest platinum on the Tommy T456 account. I think we mentioned Gran Turismo. We're going to come back to that. Warhammer Space Marine. This was, I believe I've got it open here. The trophy guide gives it a 6 out of 10, I believe. Yeah. It was quite long-winded, and the main reason people didn't get the platinum, but the reason it's so rare, is 1.5%, is because, hang on, I'm going to the wrong section here, is because of two trophies, basically. The first one is one for basically completing all the online challenges, and this is kind of similar to the Homefront one. You need to earn a certain amount of kills and a certain amount of multi-kills and a certain amount of streaks and all that kind of stuff with all the different weapons in the game. Now, that wasn't too bad if you were boosting it. It was actually quite easy, and I think at one point I self-boosted it. I got a second copy of the game from my other PS3 and kind of self-boosted. You need some multi-kill ones, but if you've got 3 copies of the game or 2 friends to help you out, it's actually really easy. It just takes a long time and you need to be really dedicated to get through it. The other trophy is this one here, True Son of the Emperor. Kill 40,000 enemies in the game. That was insane. That was just a major grind. It was kind of boring. There's one section in the game where there are 3 types of enemies ahead of you. You're on a turret. There are 3 types of enemies called cultists, if I remember correctly, and they basically spawn a group of 4 enemies below them in order. So one of them will spawn 4, another one will spawn 4, and they'll keep cycling basically until you kill the cultists themselves. So you basically shoot the cannon, the kind of turret you're on, in a very specific place on the platform where the enemies spawn. It'll get 4 kills instantly, and you'd literally cycle through that. And you'd have to do that 10,000 times to get the 40,000 kills that you need. So it's a massive long grind, really boring, but the game itself wasn't too difficult. There were some sections in the campaign that were a bit tricky, actually. And I think you needed to do just part 1. Complete part 1 of the game on hard difficulty in a single session without dying or restarting. Yeah, so it wasn't the whole game without dying, but the first section, and it needed to be on hard difficulty, and there were some sections of it that were a bit tricky. But it wasn't too difficult. It was a 6 out of 10, and it just took a long time. It was very boring, monotonous grind, because the online wasn't very active. You couldn't really rely on earning the trophies naturally, especially with things like multi-kills, You'd never see 2 enemies together. Anyway, what else have we got here? It's quite interesting going back and having a look through. It brings back a lot of memories. We got Crisis 2. Now, this is rare because it was so heavily glitched. There was one trophy. I keep doing that, don't I? Clicking on the wrong link. There was one trophy for completing, again, all the challenges online, and that was one that you needed to boost. I was able to boost it with a group. I could have probably earned it legit, but I wanted to make sure I got it out the way before putting loads of time into leveling up and things like that. That's the one there. Get 1 of each skill kill. And they were things that probably wouldn't happen naturally while playing online. But I really loved the online. A lot of people hated it because they said it was really buggy, the actual gameplay. I found it to be really smooth. I had a really good experience with it, but it was extremely frustrating because there were 2 trophies. This was one of them. And I think for reaching rank 50 as well, they both glitched. Tooled Up was, unlocking all the weapons and all the items in the game. And I put a ton of time in it. I got pretty good at the online actually. And, I fulfilled the requirements for 2 of the trophies and nothing. Trophies didn't pop. And the worst thing was, everyone was messaging Crytek at the time. They weren't really answering. They didn't really seem to care. And everyone just sort of just carried on playing. And for some people, it would unlock later after another like 20, 30 hours online. But for some people, it didn't unlock. So it was a real gamble. And I remember, several months later, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to play again. I quite enjoyed it. I'm going to play again. And I kept playing for another like 20 hours. And eventually it just randomly popped. I was so relieved. But this one, man, it was so stressful. And it was a real shame because it kind of ruined a very enjoyable experience, or, a game that would have been fun if it hadn't been for the fact that it was just so stressful not knowing whether those trophies were ever going to pop. SSX is one of my favourite PS3 games. That was so much fun. There was one really annoying trophy on there, actually. I think I've got the trophy guide open. It's given... Where's the difficulty rating? I think it's given quite a high difficulty. Oh, it's average of like a 7. But that was a huge amount of fun. There were some tricky events on it, and there was one trophy for the bandwagon trophy for playing at a global event with 50,000 or more riders. So in other words, doing one of the public like online events that 50,000 people have played, and they were only up for a short period of time. And they totally overestimated how many people were going to be playing online, because most of the events were like 2,000, 3,000, like you needed 50,000 people. So eventually they set up an event and they tweeted about it and said, right, we're going to make this the event that we want everyone to just go and play, make this the one that can earn people the trophy. I think they even put something about it in the name of the event. I think I forgot. I forgot to join that event, which I was so annoyed about. But thankfully, I think the community kind of banded together and did another one or something, because at some point I just happened to notice there was another one at 50,000, or it was like at maybe 35,000. I joined it just in case, and it did go over 50, thank goodness. But that was quite a tough plat. The online requirements were a bit tricky, some of them, or just a bit annoying. You had to kind of do some stuff that involved basically picking up collectibles that had been left by friends in your PSN friends list and things like that. And then there were some quite tricky events in the actual single player as well. But it's so much fun. It's quite a long plat, but I'm tempted to go back and do that again, actually. It was so enjoyable. I really hope that the online stays active. I think they've changed it so that you just have to take part in an event online. I think they've changed it because obviously there's not 50,000 people playing it now. So I might go back and try that if the online is still active. So that's like most of the tricky ones. Is the rest of them... Well, one thing that's actually very interesting, Medal of Honor reminded me. Medal of Honor Frontline, that was quite a tricky one. That was like a re-release of the PS2 game. Do you remember where you storm Normandy Beach? That was that was an awesome like intro to a game back then. I remember playing a demo of it originally on PS2, and I was like, wow, it's like playing Saving Private Ryan, But there's another platinum here. Yeah, Call of Duty Classic this is. Now, I'm very surprised that this has got such a high completion percentage, 13%. I was expecting this to be amongst my 5 rarest plats because it was very difficult. You had to complete the game on every difficulty. It was a game that actually released as a sort of pre-order bonus or something with Modern Warfare 2. It was, of course, the original Call of Duty, sort of upscaled to HD for PS3. And it was kind of a fun game. I played it for the challenge and I did plat it. And it was the kind of game that I was receiving congratulatory messages about. When I earned the plat, I had some people that I didn't even really know on my friends list, or I think even people who weren't on my friends list, messaging and saying, like, congratulations, I see you've done the Call of Duty Classic plat. So I don't know whether they've maybe made it easier with a patch or something, because I'm very surprised that it's such a high completion percentage. You need to complete the game on like the highest setting and all of the other settings. It doesn't stack. But the highest setting is literally like pretty much one shot and you're dead, one hit and you're down. There's checkpoints, of course, but you needed to really edge through each of the checkpoints. You'd come across an enemy, they'd kill you, but then next time you'd know where they were and you'd have to be ready for them. And then you'd edge through a bit more and there'd be another enemy, and there'd usually only be a few enemies between each checkpoint, but you needed to really know exactly where they were, and you needed to hit them the instant they came on screen, because they would hit you as soon as they had line of sight and you'd be dead. It was so difficult. So yeah, I'm very surprised that's such a high... I mean, that's... More people have earned that than Enslaved and Infamous and Uncharted 3. I mean, that's crazy. Probably because more people played these games, but that's insane. Anyway, were there any more kind of key games? I mean, most of them are just ones that are rare because of grinding, you know? Like Battlefield 3, that was a lot of online requirements for that. Alpha Protocol was an interesting game. That's a bit of an odd one. It's very clunky, but it's like an RPG with multiple branches. Like, you had to make certain choices. You had to, like... be very careful with your dialogue and things like that. Yeah, well, Gran Turismo, we're going to come back to that, don't worry. We're going to move across to the Stay Patient account now. Now, of course, my completion percentage is much higher here. I'm more of a trophy hunter now. If we go to the rarest trophies, you'll notice that most of them are PS4. But you'll notice again something that might surprise you. And yes, I did earn it totally legitimately. But the rarest one on this account is, again, Gran Turismo 5, and that's why I've held off talking about it just yet. But once again, we are going to leave it till a little bit later and just cover some of these other games first, because this is more to do with like the hardest platinums on PS4. Now, Evolve itself isn't necessarily difficult. In fact, the trophy guide gives it a 3 out of 10, and I think the average on the voting thread is like a 4. But it's all to do with the fact that, I mean, if you were to do this legitimately... let's have a look here. I think I left a comment actually on the voting thread. If you were to do this legit, it would take you just forever, because the requirements for it are absolutely insane. I earned the plat earlier today. I was actually one of the first in the world to earn this platinum. Let's have a look here. I think I was 6th, yeah. I really went for it. My story about this game is just insane. The week I spent on it, basically, I got the game through, I got it on release day, so there were a few people that were already playing it. All these guys here, I remember them, they'd already been playing it for several days, and, you know, maybe they had review copies or something. But I bought the game because it looked interesting, and I noticed on the trophy list that there were some trophies that pretty much needed boosting. I hadn't even looked at the main trophy that was the real hard, long-winded one. But there were some just fiddly ones, and I didn't really want to have to be worried about them throughout my whole time spent with the game. So I got together with a boosting group, just quickly got those out the way, and then I started playing it. And then I realised like how long it was going to be, because some of you may have played it. Basically, there are, you know, you've got all the monsters and all the characters, and they've got these different abilities and different moves each, and you need to get a certain number of kills or assists or whatever the ability relates to. You need to really farm it a ton. And some of the requirements were insane. Things like, that, you know, there's one monster that throws a rock, and you need to hit enemies, you know, you need to hit human enemies while they're in midair with a rock. Like, I think you had to do a certain amount of damage. It was something like 40,000 points of damage, whatever. But it was a lot. I mean, that won't make any sense to you if you've not played it, but it was a huge amount of damage. And literally, if you just played the game, it would take you hundreds and hundreds of hours just to get like that one requirement. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I noticed that I was high up in the leaderboard. You know, I had quite a good percentage already because of the boosting I'd done. So I thought, what I'm going to do is work on everything I can work on realistically, like without boosting, and then get together in the evenings when everyone else is around. My boosting group would come online in the evenings, and we'd work on the ridiculous requirements that were just totally unfair. And the boosting for that was insane. You just stand there, you'd have all 4 enemies jumping up, you'd throw a rock at them, or you'd have like one off to the side healing them all, and you try and have multiple things being worked on at the same time. But I remember that week, I realised that I was doing quite well, and although I was planning on having Evolve as like a long-term game that I was going to play for months, I thought, you know what? I've got the chance of being one of the first to plat it. So I really went for it. One of the days, I actually spent 17 hours in one day just playing it. It was insane. And, you know, I'd be on it all day, and then everyone would come online in the evenings. We'd boost all evening. And I think I was one of the fastest people to plat it. It took me about a week, and it's well over 100 hours, even with boosting. If you were to boost everything, it still take you over 100 hours. If you weren't to boost anything, if you were to try and do this legit, well, good luck. It's going to be basically your life for the next year probably. But yeah, that was fun. I did actually enjoy the game, although I spent so much time on it in such a short period of time, and I boosted a lot of it. I spent most of the rest of the time actually playing against bots because I found it easier to do the requirements for the trophies, and it was a really good game. I think it deserved more credit than it got. I had a lot of fun with it. Anyway, what else have we got here? King of the Road, yeah. The crew, there were trophies on this that were glitched, which makes it so rare, I think. It was a fun game. There was one race. There was one race that takes several hours. It was like racing across the whole of America. It's the game that has like a map that basically depicts the whole of America. Obviously, the towns are much smaller and the map's much smaller, but there are sort of small towns dotted around where they would be in real life, and they're designed around the style of the town. But yeah, it was kind of a fun game. There was a helpful glitch early on that allowed you to get, I think you needed to earn a certain amount of platinums, or golds or something, like gold results in different races and things like that. And you needed to gold all of them. But there was a glitch where you could basically gold the same one a bunch of times and get the trophy. And then for the challenges in the game, you could do something similar where you could gold it and then you could platinum it. And that would give you 2 gold. So if there was any difficult ones you couldn't get gold on, that would kind of make up for that. So there were helpful glitches back in the day. They've obviously fixed them now, and that's part of the reason why I was able to plat it. But there were some terrible glitches as well. There's one trophy for driving 5,000 miles, I think, in one vehicle. Now, back in the day, I don't know if they fixed this, but back in the day, that trophy was glitched so that if you turn your console off or quit the game, it would reset. So you literally had to do 5,000 miles in one sitting. Now, obviously, you wouldn't sit there and do that, but I did leave it on for several days in a row, and I was basically rubber banding it. And I found a way of being able to leave it on overnight, because you did, if you were rubber banding it, you needed to keep pressing the X button. So I was spending like full days. Every now and again, I'd have to press a button to stop it kind of timing me out and kicking me out of the server. Oh man, it's all coming back to me now. It's just insane. Some of these, like the things we do for trophies, it doesn't make any sense, does it? I don't know why. Oh, but seriously, it was that was a bit insane. It was a fun game though. I kind of enjoyed it, and I was very glad to have the plat. It's very difficult when you leave an account behind, like the Tommy T account, and you lose. You don't lose, but you no longer have the Homefront Platinum or like the Warhammer Platinum or the SSX Platinum on your new account. So it's nice to have earned some rare plats, over the years. Overwatch, obviously, all of you know about that. A lot of you have subbed to me because of my Overwatch guides. I did boost some of that. It was very difficult to boost because I did it after they'd shut down the ability to boost, basically. You had to find a workaround. You had to sit there for hours trying to kind of get 2 teams of 6 to join, to just randomly be put together in a match. There are some interesting games here that are very rare, but actually quite easy. Project Cars, I think, is rare because there's one trophy that requires you to do a bunch of community events, and they only put them up every few weeks, and you have to know they're there. They're only there for a couple of days, so if you miss them, you miss them. You have to do like 25, I think, and I got really fed up with that because they just weren't putting community events in the game. They just weren't adding any, so I was happy to get that one, but that's why it's rare. Difficulty-wise, it's only a 3 out of 10. There are, I think, some endurance races. I think there might be a 24-hour endurance race on it. So that's, that's a challenge, but obviously you can pause the game, I think. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Project Cars is a great game. If you're into like Gran Turismo and stuff like that, this is a good alternative while we're waiting for GT Sport. And like I say, it is easy. There's not really any difficulty about it. You can boost all the online trophies, I think. If they haven't changed that, you can go into a private match, boost it in no time whatsoever. Oddworld New and Tasty is another easy one. I found it easy. I think it's like a 5 out of 10, but I found it a bit easier than that. You can follow a guide. It's very rare. It's a great option for, if you want to add an ultra rare platinum to your account. And the same with Little Big Planet 3. This is a 3 out of 10, so I'm really not sure why so few people have earned it. I think it's probably because a lot of people have played it because it's quite a famous franchise, but most people aren't trophy hunters. So when they came across a glitch where the trophy didn't pop when they did all the side missions, they just left it. I think there was a glitch that I used to kind of get around that bad glitch and kind of fix it. But yeah, that was kind of a fun game. That was free, obviously, so A lot more people will start playing that now that it's been free on PS Plus, and I don't know if the percentage will go up or down based on that, but it'll be interesting to see. And then most of the rest of them, the rarity kind of dips here. Games like Call of Duty Ghosts, I'm not sure why that's so rare. That's a nice easy one, really. I mean, it's not too difficult. I really enjoyed the Extinction mode, kind of like Zombies but with aliens, but I really enjoyed it much more than Zombies. Had a lot of fun with that. So I think a lot of people hated it for some reason, but I really enjoyed it. I 100%ed the game on both consoles. But yeah, that's all of the difficult plats, apart from GT5, which I did promise to talk about. Now, you may have noticed that I earned the Gran Turismo 5 plat on both my accounts, which is pretty insane. Just to give you an overview of the Platinum, it's no longer available, a bit like the Homefront one. The online has been taken down, but it's been given a 9.5 for difficulty on the trophy guide, 600 hours plus, and most people, look at that, 781 votes for 10 out of 10 difficulty. That's a huge amount of votes. That's crazy. Just the total number of votes there is much more than I've seen on pretty much any other game. But yeah, as you can see, it's crazy, crazy difficult. It takes a huge amount of time. So to answer the questions that I mentioned earlier, I mean, one of the guys was asking, what's my hardest platinum on each console? Well, I guess on PS3, it would be Gran Turismo 5, which we're going to, go into a bit more detail on. On PS4, the hardest one I've earned on PS4, that's very difficult because there's not really many that I found extremely difficult. It wasn't Evolve. That was difficult in the sense that I was chasing the possibility of being in the top few people to plat it. So it was a real, that week was a difficult week because I was tired, I was hungry most of the time, and I was really pushing myself hard, and the boosting was quite stressful. But I guess maybe Overwatch. I feel bad suggesting that because I did boost the one trophy that was hardest. I basically boosted, what was it called? Rapid Discord. The reason I boosted that was because I'd heard horror stories about people finally getting the, meeting the requirements for the trophy and not having it pop. I even heard that some people had, boosted the trophy and not had it pop. So I thought, you know what? I'm not going to spend dozens or even hundreds of hours going for this trophy if there's a chance that it's going to glitch on me. It was glitching for a lot of people, and that's my excuse for boosting it, basically. I was doing really well as Zenyatta, and I was so close over and over, and there were some occasions where I was pretty sure I'd done it in 6 seconds, but most of you will know all about the trophy that I'm referring to, Rapid Discord. That was like the bane of my life for a while, but I decided to boost it. The rest of the trophies, they weren't actually too bad. It's given I think it's given an 8 out of 10 difficulty rating, and that's mostly because of Rapid Discord, and you can't really boost it now, but I don't know, I think maybe, it's one of these, obviously. I think possibly the crew, actually, not so much difficulty, but the fact that I had to have the grind, had to have the rubber band the controller and have the car doing circles on the salt flats and leave that for several days, and I literally had to spend full days just pressing the X button. You couldn't pause it, obviously, so I had to press the X button every 10 minutes. I think I had a timer on at some point, so I had to be here all day, and I was doing other things, but I had to remember, if I forgot, that was it. The trophy would start over again. I might be at 4,000 miles and have to start all over from scratch. So just for the sake of that trophy, could be the crew is the hardest. I'm just scanning through because let's have a look. I'm actually quite interested in finding out if there are any difficult PS4 plats that I've earned. Where are we? Because I would like to answer the question that was asked, what's my hardest plat on each platform? And it's not always the rarest platinums that are the ones you found most difficult. I think Advanced Warfare, that wasn't a hard platinum, but I think 100%ing that and also 100%ing Call of Duty Ghosts, both of them were quite tricky. So that's more to do with the DLC, but they would be up there. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got an answer for you. My hardest PS4 plat, because of when I earned the platinum, the hardest one was Destiny. Now, ironically, this is actually really easy now. I'd give it probably a 3 or 4 out of 10 at this point. But back when I platted it, I was amongst not the very first people to get the Flawless Raider trophy, but I was amongst the first maybe 100. I think I just missed out on that. Let's have a look on the top 50. Basically, we earned the Flawless Raider back before the first DLC ever came out. So it was when you were sort of the same level as the raid, and you didn't have any of the other raids. You didn't have the easy ones like the Crota raid. We just had the Vault of Glass, and we spent 2 weeks, playing it probably like 3 evenings each week, doing several raids, and eventually we managed it, and we were so happy about it. Obviously, it was a team of 6. We've even got a screenshot somewhere. I don't know if I've kept it, but one of the guys in our group sent us a screenshot of all of us, like, just posing basically at the tower. It was like, that's our raid group, And I was so chuffed with that. Flawless raiding now, as you can see, 8.42%. That's because the Crota raid can be 2-manned. I mean, you can even solo it. You can easily use a bunch of glitches that are available. You can do the whole Flawless Raider in 10 minutes or maybe 15 minutes. It's super easy now. All you need is someone who knows how to do all the important steps. But the fact that we earned it back when it was extremely difficult. I mean, on the trophy guide, it's given a 9.5, I think. And that's based on the original version of the game. Obviously now it's much easier, but it was given a 9.5. So that is based on when I earned the platinum. Destiny is the hardest platinum I've earned on PS4. So hopefully that kind of answers your question there, at least for the PS4. I'm just looking to see if you can go beyond 50. You can't, can you? We earned it literally like a couple of days after these guys. And it was a big thing, it was a big deal. They were like tweeting, Bungie were tweeting about the people that were earning Flawless Raider and everything. Vita-wise, I'm not sure what let's have a look at my Vita trophies here, because I haven't really earned many super difficult plats on Vita. I've only got 4 on my old account, Tommy T. So the hardest one here would be Rayman Origins, probably. Motorstorm RC, didn't mean to click on it. Motorstorm RC is a bit tricky. That's one of the top-down racing games, and there were some tricky requirements on that. So yeah, that was both of them were quite tricky, but I think it's because my memory of them is back from when I wasn't as good a gamer. So now I'm a much better gamer. I'm a bit older, so some games I find trickier, but for the most part, if I was to do these now, I'd probably find them quite easy. I'm not sure which games. I'm not sure if I've done any particularly difficult ones on Stay Patient. It's a lot easier for me to choose the hardest PS3 plats, obviously, because Gran Turismo 5 is there. But here we've got... I've earned quite a few plats on Stay Patient on the Vita. Oh, most of them are Japanese games, obviously. Yeah, nothing that I would really count as difficult here. Oh, maybe Resogun. This is a great game. And I can't remember if the PS3 trophies are paired with the Vita trophies. But yeah, that's quite a tricky game. Quite a tricky game to plat. It's a lot of fun though. If you've not played it, it was free during the first month of the PS4. So yeah, definitely check it out if you've got it in your backlog. Anyway, Gran Turismo 5. This is, let's have a look. This is the hardest platinum I've earned on PS3. And to answer the other question, it's the hardest and longest-winded platinum I've ever earned. So it's actually the answer to both categories. The question asked about, what's my hardest and what's my longest-winded. GT5 counts as both those. My story, my history with this game is insane. I bought it obviously on day one. I love GT, I love Gran Turismo since the very first one on PS1. And I don't think I had a steering wheel when I first started playing it. But I started playing it, on and off. I was making my way through it slowly. And at some point, after I'd made quite a bit of progress, I lost my save. It was my own fault. I actually had to reformat my PS3 and I forgot to upload my save, which is an absolute noob mistake. But I lost it all. And because I lost it, I'm the kind of person that when I lose something, when I lose some progress, I need to get that back. I need to dive on it straight away and get it back. Otherwise, it's just going to really stress me out and annoy me for too long. So although I was playing other games at the time, I was like, crap, I've lost my GT save. And I was like, right, that's it. I'm going back in. I'm getting back to at least where I was. And because I was in the rhythm, I was in the swing of things, I just went for it. And I actually platted it in a month. Now, obviously, I had already earned some trophies on it, so the time on here won't be a month because I'd earned some trophies back from when I was playing before. But because I lost my save, I had to do everything again. And there's one trophy for golding everything in the game, all the sort of career events, all of the licenses, all of the challenge, whatever they're called, the special events. That's it. So the special events are like the trickiest ones. And so, starting again from scratch without a save file meant that I was doing everything required for the platinum again. And I did the whole thing in a month. Now, it's a 600-hour plus platinum, so that's 20 hours a day for a month. Now, of course, that time wasn't all spent, actually playing the game. There was some stuff that you could do AFK. You could rubber band some of the races if your car was so fast that you could sort of just go around an oval track with a rubber band sort of holding you against the wall. That would earn you money, which was very important. You could also set up the B-spec drivers. You had A-spec and B-spec. A-spec was you driving. B-spec was like AI drivers that you put out for you and they'd earn experience and improve and stuff. Now, you could earn money by sending those out into online online races, and I actually set up several accounts with races of their own, and I had a computer program which was very useful, and it would automatically set up the races and you could leave it on overnight. It would send all your B-spec racers out, as soon as they finish a race they'd go out again. And that was very useful because it meant that you could level up the B-spec side of things, which you needed to do. You needed to reach max level on there and max level on A-spec. There were endurance races, some of which were 24 hours long, and you could technically complete them with the B-spec races, so you could do it, you wouldn't have to race it yourself. But if I remember correctly, I think you had to do all of the events, you had to gold all of the events either on B-spec or on A-spec. And I wanted to do A-spec, obviously, I wanted to race myself, so that's what I did. And I think by this point, when I started playing the game again, I think I bought the racing wheel, and that's part of the reason I dove into it so heavily, because it was so much fun. I remember sitting there with one of the cars that was one of my earliest cars that I bought. It was a RX-7, I think, and all those Japanese cars are very modifiable. So it started off, fairly okay. It was winning me races, and I remember being on the racing wheel for the first time using this car after I'd fully modified it. And, I wanted to try and do some of the higher tier races. So I thought rather than buying a new car, I'll use this one. And although I'd had that experience so many times of really beefing a car up and then getting out on track and having it herring around, I'd experienced that so many times with a controller, but sitting there with a steering wheel, with the vibration and stuff, it was so good. That first experience, just the rev meter, just flipping out when I touched the accelerator. And it's just so much fun. If you're a racing fan, I thoroughly recommend a wheel. And, I absolutely loved GT. But obviously, I'd spent a huge amount of time. I'd actually did all of the endurance races. I did every single endurance race legitimately, racing it myself. There were 2 24-hour ones. And you could pause the game, but what I'd do is I'd use a car that was so fast, the Red Bull X2010. It was like a prototype, sort of futuristic Formula One style car. And I would get really far ahead and then I'd park up and leave it overnight and people would catch me maybe, and then the next day I'd be like, right, I need to catch them again. But that was so much fun, man. I remember having the same friend that I played Homefront with, actually. He used to come around and he used to love racing. He was actually a powerboat racer, and he knows some of the F1 drivers. He used to live with one of the touring car racers, so he's very much involved in that side of things. But we used to take an hour shift each and stuff. It's a lot of fun. But then when I got near the end, there were some events that are basically the reason why this is a 9.5. The Red Bull X2010 car that I mentioned, there were special events related to that, and it was actually those events you used to earn the car in the first place. Now, the time requirements on them was insane. At the time, I was like, damn, I'm never going to do this. I think now, if I raced it now, I might be able to do it. But I did find a glitch. There were glitches. There was 3 events on different tracks, and there were glitches that you could use where you had to kind of push your way out of the track and you'd end up underneath it. And then you had to make sure to go around and activate all of the checkpoints around the lap. Now, it took quite a while to get out of the map. and the race, you know, the time you had would be like a minute. So even using the glitches, that particular group of events was some of the hardest things I've ever done. It took me like 2 days straight to get those events done, and I do feel bad kind of boosting them. It does kind of diminish the value of the platinum a little bit. But there was one other event that I actually found to be the hardest thing in the game, and there was no glitch for that. It was an event in Norway, I think, up in the mountains. It was only a short track. It was a slow car. It seemed very simple, but you needed to be perfect. You do a lap and you'd be like, oh yeah, that's fine, you know, I've done it as fast as I can possibly do it, and you'd be like several seconds behind, and that was insane. I remember that just stressing me out so much, spending hours on it, and eventually when I got it, that was like one of my proudest moments, that particular event. So obviously I loved having that platinum so much, I went back and I earned it again on the Stay Patient account. So I have done the Gran Turismo 5 Platinum twice, had so much fun with it, so much stress with it. Just, you know, my memories of that are crazy, as you can imagine. I'd love to hear if any of you guys have earned the GT5 Platinum. I mean, it's one of those games that even if you take out the two hardest parts, you know, the X 2010 Red Bull Challenges and also the event that I mentioned in Norway, if you take those two out, everything else is still super difficult. It would still be like an 8 out of 10, maybe a 9 out of 10 in difficulty. It's just those two events stand out as being like ridiculous, and when you finally get them, you're so elated. It's awesome. So guys, I mean, I could talk about this game forever, but you know, I hope I haven't rambled on too much and bored you. But to answer the questions that were asked that I mentioned earlier, the hardest platinums I've earned on the 3 consoles. PS3 would be Gran Turismo 5. PS4 would be Destiny, but only because I earned it back when it was very difficult. And on Vita, I haven't really done anything super difficult on Vita. Maybe Rayman Origins, that was a bit tricky, maybe a 7 out of 10 in difficulty. But the standout game that was both the hardest platinum and the longest platinum I've ever earned would be Gran Turismo 5, spending 20 hours a day for a month. I mean, it pretty much didn't, like, I didn't turn my PS3 off much at all. Every few days I'd turn it off for like an hour, and I'd give it a rest. But it was pretty much on constantly for a full month, and I can't believe I even earned that in a month. There you go, guys. I'm going to go because I'm just really starting to ramble now. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying this series. Let us know in the comments below what your hardest platinum of all time has been, which one took you the longest to earn. I'm really enjoying this series. It's a great excuse for me to talk about random stuff that doesn't really fit in with any of the other content. So if you want to jump on Patreon and have the opportunity to suggest some subjects for me or ask me questions that I can answer during these shows, then I'd really love to have your input there. But in the meantime, guys, I look forward to seeing you maybe later in the week for whatever my next video happens to be. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you very soon. Cheers, guys.